Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Self-Care Forum podcast. My name is Dr. Cedric Batchatu, your host for the hour. We bring you knowledge to empower you to address the root cause of disease. Our goal is to interest you in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. Today, we are joined by none other than Dietitian Kim Rose. Dietitian Kim Rose helps people gain control of their blood sugar levels, cholesterol levels, and blood pressure by modifying their diet and identifying lifestyle changes they need to make. Dietitian Kim, I want to thank you for joining us here on the Self-Care Forum podcast. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Cedric. I'm excited to be here and dive right in.
Yes, ma'am, indeed. So let's talk a little bit about you and your past. I want to focus, I always like to find out what inspired people to become the health professionals, to take the path that they did in life. And so for you, I want to know a little bit about what originally inspired you to become a dietitian and to focus on health. I mean, what inspired you to become a dietitian and nutritionist?
So I was raised in a very traditional Jamaican household. So if you hear an accent, it's a Jamaican accent you're hearing, guys. A lot of people say, "Oh, are you from New York?" No, I'm Jamaican. So being raised in a very traditional Jamaican household, the only thing that really was taught is you're either going to become a nurse or you're going to become a doctor. So I always had that conception. I went to Medical Magnet High School. And then when I finally entered college, I was in the pre-nursing program. But then spending a lot of time around my uncle, he would introduce me to different aspects of the medical field. And he said to me, "Kim, why don't you just double major with, your pre-nursing track and also dietetics?" And I said to myself, well, that's not bad because a lot of the classes, especially the undergraduate classes, they are quite similar. So while taking both classes, I realized that I fell in love with dietetics. And one of the reasons why I fell in love with it is because I realized, number one, I don't care if you're the Queen of England. I don't care if you're the President of the United States. We all have to eat in order to live. The second thing I noticed is that I was the one of two persons of color in my class. And so I was just looking around in the class like, okay, little diversity, some diversity needs to exist in this realm. So I just decided to go full track and focus on dietetics because I realized it is an entering wedge into people's overall health and well-being, especially when it comes to decreasing the risk of certain diseases, lifestyle diseases. We can definitely do that through food. And then if food doesn't help, then they go see someone like you, Dr. Cedric, pharmacy.
Unfortunately, well, first of all, let me say I agree with you wholeheartedly. Unfortunately, what tends to happen is the opposite. Many people tend to just go for the drugs as opposed to looking at what nutritional or dietary or lifestyle changes they can make. I think, the power of nutrition and lifestyle change to improve health and ameliorate chronic diseases greatly underrated. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that. How long have you been a nutritionist?
I have been a practicing registered dietitian for 10 and a half years. Wow. 10 and a half. So even though, guys, I look quite young, it's the diet. It's the diet. It's the diet. I've been practicing for 10 and a half years in Florida.
Wow. And the weather too. I was going to say, is it genes or what is it?
I think it's the vitamin D from the sun, what we were discussing earlier. And yeah, it's just the weather. And, really another thing that I'm realizing too is it's important for us as people in general to learn different avenues to help minimize our stress. And even though, so my background, besides food and nutrition, I also have an undergraduate degree in exercise science and physiology. So just the importance of exercise in stress reduction and stress management and increasing the endorphins is important as well.
It sounds to me like you've gone from one program to another to another. You've got quite the resume. Where did you go to school ultimately?
Sure. I went to school at Florida State University, which is located in the capital, Tallahassee, Florida. And then I did my internship with the Veteran Affairs Association located in St. Louis, Missouri.
Let's get into the whole theme of today's podcast, better blood sugar control. And so with that, I read on your website that you're a big fan and a big proponent of a plant-based diet. What are some of the benefits of adopting a more plant-based diet?
Yeah, so I have been adhering to a plant-based diet for the past, I think it's 14 years now.
Wow.
So one of the number one benefits of adhering to a plant-based diet is number one, fiber. I'm not sure where everyone is listening in from today, but we do not get enough fiber in our diets. Period. We don't. And recently, the dietary guidelines for Americans increased the recommendation for fiber. And one of the easiest ways to do so is to start eating more fruits, more vegetables, more whole grains, more nuts, more beans, more seeds, and legumes. Because once you increase your fiber intake, this helps to control your blood sugar levels. This helps to keep your colon regular and prevent constipation. I can't tell you the amount of people that I see on a daily basis that come to the hospital simply for constipation. It's ridiculous. Increased fiber intake also helps with decreasing heart disease. And fruits and vegetables and all of those plant-based foods, they have antioxidants in them. And the antioxidants actually help to protect our cells from damage associated with free radicals. For instance, secondhand smoke, just simply simply sitting in front of the computer, speaking on the phone, it produces free radicals, which our body takes in. So the antioxidants, which are found in the plant-based kingdom, actually help to protect our cells against the damage that occurs. So, something that I always tell people, even if they work with me and they are not vegetarian or they are not vegan, something that I always push is every single meal, show me your fruits, show me your vegetables, where's your whole grains? Because a plant-based diet, it's seriously underrated. It is, and yet it's so simple. It's so simple to do.
Wow. And I've always heard that, fiber is really one of the greatest things you can do if you're someone who's struggling with blood sugar, because it slows down the absorption of sugar into the bloodstream. So you're right. You're absolutely right about that. Your website, you also mentioned the three-dimensional aspects of health. Can you elaborate on those, please?
Yes, of course. I actually had an Instagram live on that today. So I believe that we are three-dimensional beings. What I mean by that is we are physical, we are mental / emotional, and we are also spiritual. So if you are not in a mentally well space, then this can impact your physical being. It can also impact your spiritual being. Vice versa, if you're not in a physically well place, if you have some type of ailment or you have a hard time managing some type of physical malady, then this can impact how you perceive things and also can impact you spiritually. So I believe that health is three-dimensional. That's why physically we go to doctors. Mentally, we go to psychiatrists or physical or social workers or anyone that deals with the mind. And spiritually, we may go to our pastor or go to someone that we hold in esteem that may have a closer relationship with God. So I believe that wellness, you have to actually meet all three in order to function at your optimal peak. Now, that's not to say that myself, that, I'm holistically well, but definitely being cognizant of the areas that you may be lacking will help you to make smart goals so that you can achieve that overall health and wellness.
Very well said. You're right about that. We have to consider not just our physical health, but we also have this idea of mental health that I know for a fact that in our community, in the Black or African American community, it's not something that's often talked about enough, right? The idea of mental health, the idea of it being okay to go and get help, because not everybody's okay, and not everybody handles stresses and burdens the same way. Some people can handle it well.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, they can't really handle it, and a lot of people turn to pills and alcohol, and can often abuse substances. So it's important to be cognizant of these things, and of course spirituality. Having that hope for the future, it's something that keeps at least myself going a lot of times. But I thank you for expanding on that. Yeah. So
and then something else that I wanted to add as well, I have just seen people that, for instance, if you have uncontrolled diabetes, I have seen, especially in the South where I live, in the Black communities, they say, I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to let Jesus handle it, or whoever they may worship. I'm going to let God take the wheel. And if their blood sugar gets worse, they have a physical malady, they turn to the spiritual aspect and the blood sugar gets worse, then this can disturb their mental wellness. Well, they may say, well, I'm doing everything right. So definitely, I 100% agree with it, because in the Black community, mental health is such a stigma, but some of my most successful clients when it comes to better blood sugar control are individuals that realize, there's three different dimensions that I actually need to address. I need to address my physical, my emotional, mental, and also my spiritual. And Kim is dealing with my physical. So I need a professional to deal with my mental. And then I need to go to my pastor for my spiritual. So it's really underrated, because I think a lot of times we, as people of color, we have a good grasp on the spiritual, we have a good grasp on the physical, but there's still some stigma surrounding the mental, which I don't know why that is, but I'm glad that we're having this conversation and we're overcoming that.
And to add to that, Dietitian Kim, just to share a little bit about my personal story, I grew up in the church, North Greece Road Church of Christ, back in Rochester, New York. And, I saw a little bit about what you're talking about. And one of the things that, when I became a pharmacist, I really wanted to make a difference in was the fact that, a lot of people had physical malaises and, the physical challenges, whether it's diabetes or high blood pressure, whatever the physical chronic disease was. And too often, yes, we would pray about it, but that's as far as many of us go. The idea of, okay, well, what am I going to change in order to ameliorate the situation, in order to better my own situation? That concept for many people, especially, unfortunately, especially the older generation, that concept is not quite well ingrained. And I think we're seeing a change. And I hope that this podcast and others are going to spur that change, whereby, look, I love me some Jesus, okay? But at the end of the day, I am responsible for what I put in my mouth and in my body. I mean, if I eat crap and I say grace before I eat crap, I still ate crap, and I'm going to feel like crap.
Amen. Amen. You said it. You said it. Even the scriptures say, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And what you don't know does hurt you.
Yes.
So it's really about educating ourselves. But don't get me preaching on a Sunday night. Don't get me preaching. We are vessels. We are living vessels of God. So if we do not treat the temple of the Lord properly,
That's right.
we're not a good witness. We are not. And that's not to say if you have diabetes, you're not a good witness, but it should behoove us to know what type of foods we should be putting into our systems
That's right.
in order to help balance our blood sugars.
Agreed 100%. And with that being said, so how do people work with you? What sort of services do you offer? I know you have two things that stuck out. I know you do nutritional counseling, and you also have a program called the Roadmap to Better Blood Sugar Management. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Sure. So the nutritional counseling is really a one-on-one service. And the reason why it's a one-on-one service is simply because when I was in the hospital setting, I would see people come to me and they had approximately 20 minutes for me to explain everything that they needed to know in regards to managing their blood sugar. And when someone gets a diagnosis, I don't care if the diagnosis is, maybe something small in someone else's eyes or something large in another person's eyes. You can just see the despair. You can see the confusion. You can see just the turmoil on people's faces of getting a diagnosis and them not knowing how to manage it. And 20 minutes is simply not enough time. 1 hour is simply not enough time. So in my nutrition counseling service, I work one-on-one with individuals. So I give them my personal cell phone number and I tell them, take pictures of your meal. I want to see the times you're eating. I want to see the type of food you're eating. I want to see if you are getting in enough plants into your system. I want to see if you're getting in enough healthy fats and lean protein into your system. So it's really me giving them accountability as well as giving them guidance on a weekly basis on how their plate should look. So that can take place as if someone is a quick learner and they can grasp it quickly, then I work with them for a month. Or I work with them for 3 months. And the 3-month period is for someone who is new to the diagnosis, or they may be a slow learner, or they need the hand holding, just like how I need hand holding. I'll be honest, I'll put myself out there. I need hand holding. So with the 3-month service, it really gives us a chance to look at your A1C, work for 3 months, and then go back to your doctor to see, okay, look at these interventions and how they impacted your A1C. And it allows them to build sustainable goals. Because something I always like to say is, I'm not going to be there every single day for 365 days of the year. So I need you to be able to think like me and say, where's my carb? Where's my healthy fat? Where's my lean protein? And by the end of the 3-month period, then they're able to pick that up. So that is the nutrition counseling aspect. I also have the self-study course, which is called Roadmap to Better Blood Sugar Management, which is a 5-week self-study course. So this course really takes into consideration if you have diabetes for 1 year or if you have diabetes for 20 years, and it breaks down the different areas of the management. It talks about what is diabetes, because a lot of individuals don't know what diabetes is.
No, they
and
don't.
then it goes into, they don't. And then on top of that, they don't know if they have type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes. They don't know the difference. And then it goes into the food aspect of it, the fat, the protein, the carbohydrates, also known as the macronutrients. And then we speak about stress management. Stress management is important because stress management can cause your adrenal glands to let go of cortisol and all of those other lovely hormones that can cause your blood sugar to spike. I also speak about joyful movement. I say it's joyful movement because some people don't like the term exercising. So especially with joyful, they don't like the term. So I always tell people, find something that you like. If you don't like to run, don't run. If you like to garden, if you like to dance when you're cleaning the house, those things, don't take it for granted. You'll definitely get a cardio workout. And then we also speak about some of the nutrition myths, such as the keto diet, which is the bane of my existence. We speak
Really?
about that as it is. I'm not a fan of the keto diet. I really am not, because studies are showing that yes, it does decrease your blood sugar levels, but in the long term, how does it impact your heart? And individuals that do have diabetes, they are more at risk for heart problems. So it really does some wonky things to the LDL as well as the total cholesterol numbers. And the research is still, it's just inconclusive. So until the research shows me something, I will continue to say it's the bane of my existence. So that 5-week self-study course, that's what we go through. And during that time, the 5 weeks, something that I like to throw in there so that people can see, like, I see that you're enrolled in the course, I'm actually following your progress,
Mhm.
is let's meet twice. Let's meet once in the beginning and once at the end, so that you can pick my brain and I can individualize your meal plan for you and ask me any questions that you have. So I really try to avail myself, because people are out there hurting. There's over 34 million Americans with diabetes,
Right.
and 1.5 million are diagnosed on an annual basis, and roughly 7 million are still undiagnosed. 7 million are walking around not realizing that they have diabetes. And these populations are populations of color.
Mhm.
So as you can see, it's a little sweet spot. It's a little sweet spot for me, because my grand uncle, he died when he was about 54 due
Oh,
to uncontrolled blood sugar levels. He ended up getting bilateral amputation of his legs. He ended up being on dialysis. He ended up having a cardiac event because of uncontrolled diabetes. And I realized all of this is preventable. It's
wow.
all based on the foods that you put into your mouth. And
Right.
I'm not a believer that food has to taste like cardboard and sadness, because we like seasoning. We
Yes, we do.
do. Food has to taste good.
That's
So
right.
I teach people, look, you can still enjoy the foods that you like. We may have to change the time of day that you're eating them and the portion sizes, and throw in some foods from the vegetable and the fruit and the legume kingdom, but you can still enjoy the foods that you like. I like to tell people, let's stick with the foods that God made. God
Mhm.
did not make those potato chips. God did not make, certain highly processed foods. What did he make? Let's stick with those foods which have more nutrients in them. So it's really about nutrient density is what I look at for people.
Wow. Wow. No, he did not make those potato chips. He made potatoes. Um,
Yes.
no, and on the topic of diabetes, you're absolutely right. There are 34 million, diabetics, adults in the United States. Um, uh, 1.5, I believe you mentioned, are becoming
Mhm.
diagnosed every year, and a large majority
Mhm.
of these diabetics don't actually know that they're going to, that they are diabetic, and I think that's shocking. When you look at the country,
Mhm.
that's almost 12% of U.S. adults. Now, one other statistics that I read was that by 2050, I believe 1 in 3 adults would become diabetic. And now that's
Wow.
scary. Now that is scary. And speaking of this, I mean, we're looking at diabetes as a rising trend. So I'd like to ask you, Dietitian Kim,
Mhm.
what do you think is causing this spike in diabetics in this country? What are some causes that you believe are responsible?
There's actually a few causes which I believe are responsible, and I would say since 2019, I have had more young people than ever. I mean, people in their 20s and early 30s come
Mm,
to me and say, my doctor diagnosed me with diabetes. And I think it's in large part due to the stress associated during the times that we are living in. I think as people of color, there's this term circulating that we are resilient, which we know we are. Look at our history. We know we are, but because the resiliency is promoted, we internalize the stress. And what happens is something by the name of epigenetics. I was put onto this by one of the interventional cardiologists out in California, Dr. Columbus Batiste, that I'm in contact with. And he was saying, when we create the perfect environment, this turns on certain genes, which we know are in our genome. Just because our family has a history of diabetes does not automatically mean that we are going to get diabetes. But when we internalize stress, and when we create an environment that is conducive to inflammation, then we turn on certain genes, which then results in insulin resistance and can lead to prediabetes as well as type 2 diabetes. Another thing that I think is crucial is rest. Rest is very important. I was, when I was a young, when I was a new dietitian, I just took I know, right? I took a fancy to the other disciplines that I was working with in the hospital. And one of those disciplines was a respiratory therapist. And I remember just during my lunch break, I would visit the sleep lab. And I made friends with one of the guys there, and he was saying to me, yeah, I'm doing a sleep study on someone, and this is quite interesting. And he's looking at the brain waves and all of these other things, which are, I don't understand. But during his conversation with me, he said something which is quite critical. He stated that when our sleep is disturbed, and if we do not get good rest, it is equivalent to eating 12 candy bars.
Whoa.
And I said, what? I said, what? And this is an older man. And he said, and so he's well seasoned in his career. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, because the body does not have a chance to rest. Our adrenal glands are pumping out epinephrine and cortisol and glucocorticoid and all of these steroid hormones that is causing our liver to release glucose, and it causes our blood sugars to be elevated. So he was saying that he noticed that a lot of individuals that have sleep problems also have diabetes.
Whoa.
So from when he started telling me that 10 years ago, I realized the importance of rest in regards to keeping our blood sugar levels down. Even if you look at the Sleep Foundation, which is sleep.org, mm-hmm. there's articles upon articles there linking diabetes to a lack of sleep and vice versa. So it's a double-edged sword when you look at it. So I think really those two things, and then also research is showing that there is an obesity epidemic. But to be honest with you, people of color do live in bigger bodies, and the BMI is really stemmed in racism. So I really I'm not sure if I 100% agree with that, but definitely the way that we handle stress, the lack of sleep, and also the fact that we are not moving like we used to. Because mm-hmm. I know my grandparents, they ate whatever, but they were on the farm, they were working, they were gardening, they were active, they were walking everywhere. So I really think it's one of those three things, or probably a combination of all three things, which can impact our blood sugar levels.
Wow. Now that's cutting it deep. I know for a fact that, when you were talking about the impact and you likened a lack of sleep to eating 12 candy bars, I work the overnight shift. So, that scares me a little bit because, I'm thinking, well, how long can I continue to do this? And certainly, mm-hmm. do I just sleep a little bit more on the days that I'm off? And so I've got some thinking to do.
Yeah, you can definitely sleep a little bit more. There's a sleep researcher in Canada. Her name eclipses me at this time. I was speaking to her, and she was saying that we can actually catch up on our sleep deficit, especially on the weekends, to sleep a little bit more. But seeing that, so advice that I give people is, I know the information that I may be saying because I'm hitting things hard. I'm hitting things heavy. It may be stressful, but control what you can control. If you can't control your job schedule, then that's fine. Learn how to control what enters your mouth. You have control over that. So definitely feeding your body with these antioxidants to protect your cells is still really the cream of the crux.
Well, I thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. So yeah, continuing along the trajectory of, better blood sugar management. So when a patient or a client comes to you and they say, well, Dietitian Kim, I've just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. How do you work with them? Where do you start? What do you tell them? Or do you just put them on the blood sugar management program? How do you approach this issue?
Yeah. So the first thing that I like to ask them is we're just conversing because I want them to be comfortable with me. I want them to get to know me. I want them to realize I'm not looking at them as patient number 01357. People are not numbers to me. They're people with feelings. They're people that have to wrap their mind around, okay, I have a disease. So I like to ask them, what do you know about diabetes? And a lot of the times I hear the negative. I hear that my neighbor died of diabetes. My aunt had diabetes and she had an amputation. So I like to tell them that this does not have to be their destiny. I like to empower and encourage them that better blood sugars are achievable and can be maintained as well as sustained. So the first thing that I like to look at an individual is, let's talk about your lifestyle. Before we even talk about the diet, let's talk about your lifestyle. We talk about stress and we talk about alternatives to stress. We talk about sleep and we talk about possible different things that individuals can do to improve their sleep, such as, taking a walk in the evening, turning off blue light, which comes from our phones and our computers 1 to 2 hours before bed. Having some tea, because right after this, I'm about to settle down for bed, you guys, to be honest with you. Making sure that they put their phone on silent. I'm a big fan of essential oil, so I have some lavender in the diffuser. So just giving them these little tips in order to set the mood for a better night's rest. Then we speak about movement, because movement is critical. Sitting is the new, what does it say? I think there was an article that says sitting is the new bad or something like that.
Yeah, I'm familiar
But
with
just
that.
really something like that, but really encouraging them, to get up and go outside for a walk. If you have bad knees, then that's okay. Get a water bottle and do some arm curls with that, something nice and simple. And after all of that foundation is laid, then the last thing that we speak about is the diet. So I really like to change people's minds. Diabetes is not about avoiding certain foods, but it's rather about what can we put into our regimen that will set up our body for success. And really food is the last bit of it. We have to learn how to manage our stress, how to enjoy joyful movement. We have to learn how to get an adequate night's rest. And if you're someone like my grandmother that only gets 4 hours of sleep a night, hey, you take a little cat nap during the day. Hey, that works wonders as well. It does. Sleep.org. I'm telling you, sleep.org has all of the details on what you need to know to improve your sleep from the scientific studies. So that's how I like to walk my clients through how to improve their blood sugars in as little as a month.
Wow. Wow. And so with that last component being nutrition, I want you to tell us a little bit about, the importance of nutrition, the role that it can play, because you said something that I really found interesting, that diabetes isn't about what you can't eat, but it's about how putting these things in you can actually help you. And so it's a different way of thinking altogether, right? For someone, usually when we think about diabetes, what comes to mind is, oh, I can't eat sugar. I can't eat sweets. It sends my
Yeah.
blood sugar up. I don't make enough insulin to handle all that sugar. But what you're saying is, no, put in the good things, put in the right things, and your body will take care of itself. So I want to expand a little bit about, the nutritional aspect. What is the significance of, let's say, carbohydrates, fats, or even protein? You've already mentioned fiber, but can you tell us a little bit about the significance of these aspects of nutrition?
Right, right. So something that I want to say before I actually go into the macronutrients is this. Um, a lot of people think that medications are bad. Medications are not bad. Medications actually, for instance, a lot of individuals that I see that have diabetes, they are on metformin, which is a
Mhm.
pill that they take to help lower their blood sugars. Depending on the type of diabetes that you have, some people are on insulin, and that's simply because we have an organ in our body by the name of the pancreas that produces insulin, and insulin helps to lower our blood sugars. And sometimes that pancreas gets a little tired and it needs a little
Mhm.
help. It needs a little assistance. So medications are not bad. So I want to preface that because a lot of people always say, come to me and say, can you help me get off my medications? And I say, no, but I can help you create steps that you can maintain better blood sugar control. So with the macronutrients are carbohydrates, they are protein as well as fat. So carbohydrates are important. As a matter of fact, it is the brain's preferred source of energy. So a lot of people think with diabetes that they can't eat carbs, and carbs are found, guess where? In a lot of those plant-based foods. They are found in our fruits. They are found in our starchy vegetables, such as potatoes and corn. They're found in our beans, our legumes, our nuts, our seeds, as well as dairy products, or if you're like me, your plant-based dairy products. So carbohydrates are important because they have different vitamins in them. They have B vitamins, which help with our energy level. In the dairy products, there's calcium, there's phosphorus, which helps with bones, which is especially important for women as we age. And it also has a plethora of different vitamins and minerals that is found in our fruits as well as vegetables. So if anyone tells you with diabetes, you have to avoid carbohydrates, run, because they are sent from the devil and they do not have your best health interests in mind. Because carbohydrates are created, as we've established, I don't mean to be preachy, but they're created by God. And
Mhm.
God, in his wisdom, gave us carbohydrates for a certain reason. So carbohydrates are essential. The next thing that we want to look at is protein. And we get our protein from animal products, as well as there's some new plant-based protein products that I'm personally not a fan of. But with the animal products, it's important that we choose lean protein sources. And what I mean by lean protein sources is, number one, we need to examine the way that we are cooking our protein. If we are frying that chicken, what I will say instead is, let's go ahead and bake that chicken, or let us grill that chicken. And the reason why we want to make sure that our protein does not have a really high fat content is because, as I stated earlier, individuals that have diabetes also are at an increased risk for heart problems.
Mhm.
So another way to decrease the fat in the protein is by taking the skin off of the chicken. And when I tell people that, they say, but the skin is the best part. Yes, it's the best part, but your heart doesn't like it. It's not the best. So instead, add some seasonings to it. Just because you have diabetes doesn't mean that your food has to taste like cardboard and sadness. Go
Mm.
ahead and experiment. Smoked paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, that bay leaf, dill, whatever is your fancy, goes a long way. Another thing as well is the fat. So there's two types of fat. There is saturated fat and there's unsaturated fat, which you can think of as the bad fat and the good fat. So saturated fat is found mostly in the animal products, and that's why I'm telling you, go ahead and take the skin off the chicken, make sure you don't fry it. And the unsaturated fat is more of the heart healthy fat, which is found in avocados. It's found in your nuts and seeds and also plant-based oils. So something you may hear from me if you work with me, I may tell you like, hey, can we start doing some extra virgin olive oil in your meals? Or, I noticed that you don't eat any type of nuts. Is there a particular reason? Do you have an allergy? And if you don't have an allergy, I'm gonna say, okay, well, we're gonna incorporate nuts as a snack, because it's important that we do get the heart healthy fats in order to help decrease our cholesterol levels and just to make sure that we are functioning at our nutritional optimal peak.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for that. You mentioned a little bit about the plant-based protein sources. Are you referring to Beyond Burgers?
Oh, I don't want to mention any brands, but anything out there. Really, me personally, the reason why I'm not a fan is because of me. I realize those things don't digest well with me. They don't digest well. So it causes me gastrointestinal issues, but that is not to discourage anyone that wants to try it. So if your stomach can handle it, then by all means, you can go ahead and do it. But for me, my stomach can't really handle it.
So, Dietitian Kim, you've said a lot of very useful, very important things, and I'm certainly very thankful for those in the audience who are listening and thinking, well, I'd like to work with her, and as well as for those who will watch this video later on and who want to learn a little bit more or work with you or maybe access the Roadmap to Blood Sugar Management program. Tell us a little bit how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so the easiest way to do so is to go on my website. The name is kimrosedietitian.com, which is KimRosedieTitian.com, and go to the Work With Me tab. And the first thing that I'll ask you to do is to schedule a free 15-minute chat, because I want to get to know you guys. I want to know what you're struggling with, to see if you can do the roadmap, or working one-on-one would be better. So definitely go to my website and we can take it from there.
Wow, thank you. And so for those who want to follow you on social media and look upon your work and some of the things that you've done, where can they find you? Under what handle and what platforms?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, the.bloodsugar.nutritionist. That's my Instagram handle. And then I'm also on YouTube, but I'm currently changing my YouTube behind the scenes, but you can find me on YouTube as well under my name, Kim Rose Dietitian.
Well, Kim, I want to thank you for joining us this evening for another episode of the Self-Care Forum podcast. Thank you for enlightening us on how to achieve better blood sugar control. And so this is the portion of the podcast where we open it up to the audience, and those who have a question, they're more than welcome to ask that question. Listen to the audio version of the Self-Care Forum podcast on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts.